What's up, Saints and Eights? Welcome back to another episode of Music and Makeup. I'm Nola Darling, and this weekend marks the 35th anniversary of Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. And since Spike Lee is one of my favorite directors, I'm going to play you all some of my favorite songs from the soundtracks from his movies. So let's jump into it. I've already done my brows off camera, so today I'm going to be using the Danessa Myricks Colorfix pigments. This one is in Nude 8, and I'm also going to use the Danessa Myricks Colorfix in Gilded. This one is in Nude 8 and this is in the color Gilded. The Gilded is from the Liquid Metals collection and this one is from the Nudes collection. And to smoke the eye a bit, the color Evermore from her Blooming Romance Groundwork palette. So let's get started. I'm going to put a transitional shade on my lid. I think I'm going to use Bliss. So the song that's been playing while I've been doing my eyeshadow, this is the theme from She's Gotta Have It. It's used in the opening title shots and it plays throughout the movie during different points. Now, She's Gotta Have It is my favorite Spike Lee movie. It was also my very first Spike Lee movie. I was too young to see She's Gotta Have It when it was initially released. And the way that I found out about She's Gotta Have It, or how that movie existed, was through School Days. Particularly, I did not care for School Days, or even at that age, I didn't want to see it because I'm a dark-skinned girl who grew up in the 80s and 90s. My hand don't move. That's my reality. I watched movies so I could escape, and it was just like, I don't want to hear how unattractive the world thinks I am, or I didn't want to hear it. I like movies that are kind of, at that time when I was young, an escape from my real life, which that was very much my real life. School Days was controversial. So in the midst of all this publicity about School Days, they kept mentioning Spike Lee's other and first film, She's Gotta Have It. And I'm like, what a controversial title, even for that time, because this is the 80s. She's Gotta Have It. And I'm like, well, who is she and what does she need to have? And she was the character Nola Darling. She's Gotta Have It is the story of Nola Darling and her three suitors, Jamie, Greers, and Mars, and they're all three different types of personalities. Now that I'm older, I don't know why this movie was so controversial, but nonetheless, she's dating. This movie starred Tracy Camilla Johns and later on went to make a series on Netflix. I'll hold my comments on that. The Netflix series to me was like a gift and a curse. It was a good thing. I was happy that it exposed more people to the original movie, but child, I hate what they did with the character, especially in the second season. That's just not where I saw any of this going. But nonetheless, this was one of my first Spike Lee movies, and I felt like Nola Darling was such a revolutionary character to me because up until that time, seeing that on screen, a woman taking charge of her sexuality, setting boundaries sexually for herself. I still don't understand, again, why this movie was so controversial. I guess it's because she had different boyfriends, but I guess that's normal now. So I don't even know if there would have been the same type of outrage. We would have just called her Lori Harvey and called it a night. But on top of that, a dark-skinned woman having her way. Because up to that point, this was like 89, 90, I had been told so much that you won't find love, no one will find you desirable. And here was this woman with not only one, but three boyfriends and women that was after her too. So it let me know that is a lie. I'm thankful that we got to see that. All right, so for the eyes, I have little eyes. So I'm going to use my old crayon case crease brush, and I'm going to go here. I really want the darkest I can go. So I'm going to use XO on my Danessa Myricks palettes here. And because I have hooded eyes, I'm going to, I can't show you all here, but see where that fold is on my eye? I'm just going to go outside here and mark that fold. So with this little brush, it's gonna go no higher than there, and then just kind of start, and I'll pack more on. I just wanted to get my mark going. See how it's hooded, and so it's not, my problem is I would struggle putting it too high up or not putting enough on, but that's where that lies. And I'm just gonna blend this harsh line I have out here with a fluffy brush. There we go. It was looking a little harsh. All right, there we go. So I like it. I'm gonna put a little shimmer on it, and I'll clean this up in the concealer process. I said I was gonna use nude. I don't think that's gonna be necessary. I'm gonna just go right in with the Gilded on top of the eye and see how that looks. Hopefully I don't mess this up. This song is Fight the Power from Public Enemy. This was on the soundtrack for Do the Right Thing. It's set in Brooklyn, and it focuses on racial tensions within this Bed-Stuy neighborhood. But one thing that I do like about Spike Lee movies is they have like subplots. So there are also, aside from like the bigger story of the racial tensions and things that are going on in this neighborhood, there are little subplots that also became my favorite. The little love story between the mayor and mother's sister, and also like the side plot between Mookie and his child's mother, who was played by Rosie Perez, who also did the dancing in the beginning of this film. Fight the Power was already a really controversial song for this movie. That's one thing about Spike Lee in the 80s and 90s. If there was some controversy to be had, he was gonna be there. And not in an exploitative type way, but I always felt like he was one to shine the light on, like, this is what's going on over here. And I love storytellers. I like hearing what is it like where you are from. Tell me your perspective. Where are you coming from? And this song too, it had people in a frenzy, but Public Enemy had been making revolutionary music, so to speak. I know y'all get distracted by like Flavor Flav and the clock and stuff, but there's always been a message in their music. A lot of what I learned or encouraged me to dig deeper about race in this country came from Public Enemy. That's where my nature of questioning things and like, where did we get that from and who told us that and what is the real history behind things. And so I was already familiar with their work through Don't Believe the Hype. So I remember that song. I remember my dad bringing the video home on like a VHS and hearing that song. I'm going here with the Gilded, same thing. And then not to go no further than there. Now one thing about the pigment, you gotta kind of work fast because it dries down fast. Alright, that's better. Went ahead and blended out all the rest of the shadow. This is where I landed, still some more cleaning up to do. But yeah, Do the Right Thing was one of my introductions into the real way that the world worked, and that New York had racism too. Because growing up in the South, you would always hear there's no racism up there, and Do the Right Thing really like shone a light on that and was like, yes, indeed there is racism in New York City. It may not be the same as Virginia or Mississippi or Alabama racism, but it's there. After battling with my eyeshadow, this is where I ended up landing at. I like it. I don't know how I feel about it. I gotta do some more cleaning up, so we'll see. So on to the complexion stuff. For my summertime routine, I'm really not feeling foundation, so I'm going to be using Danessa Myricks Blurring Balm and the Yummy Skin Tint today instead of foundation, and I'll be concealing using the Fenty Beauty Wear Even Hydrating Concealer. So this song is these three words, and this is from the Jungle Fever soundtrack, and this movie came out right after, about 2 years after Do the Right Thing. Jungle Fever, another controversial topic because Jungle Fever is centered around interracial dating. Jungle Fever is set in Harlem, tells the story of an architect who is black named Flipper Purifying, who's played by Wesley Snipes, and he has an affair with his Italian co-worker, Angie Tucci. And then I know the interracial relationship was like a draw for this movie. There were 3 different plots going on. There was, of course, the plot between Flipper and getting caught cheating on his wife, and the fact that this was an Italian woman that he got caught cheating with, and it even dealt with a little bit of colorism because Flipper's wife was not dark skinned. There's another plot between Gator, who is Flipper's brother, who is battling with drug addiction, and how that affects a family, and Gator's relationship with his parents, Lucinda and the good Reverend Doctor. I'm just going to prime with the Danessa Myricks Blurring Balm Powder. Y'all see this thing is to the pan. She's releasing the shade 9.5, which is more my summer shade. But honey, you see I've been rationing this out little by little because I want my stuff to last. And I'm going to put this on a brush. Look how that blurs. I love this stuff so bad. Look at that. So the third storyline in this movie would be between Paulie, and he's a man that runs a newsstand soda shop. Paulie is Angie's boyfriend because Angie is also cheating too. And he's her boyfriend. You've been together for some time, they get married, traditional thing. And Paulie catches a lot of flack for not being like softer type of man, and Paulie faces a lot of ridicule in his neighborhood for not treating Angie in an oppressive manner. And you could tell that Paulie like thinks a lot different than the people around him and is interested in learning about the world at a wider view than just what's in Bensonhurst. Paulie also takes care of his elderly widowed father, and a large part of Paulie trying to find himself is detaching from his relationship with his father, or setting a boundary there, because his father at one point was treating Paulie like his wife. And he wanted him to do everything for him, did not want Paulie to have a life. He stayed interjecting into his life. This is what you need to do with Angela. This is what you need to do with the store. This is what you need to do with your life. This is what you need to be doing. To the point, there's like a scene in the movie, Paulie was like, I am not your wife. And I have to have a life for myself. I don't do anything but sit and come and serve you, and I need to have a life. And so he ends up going on a date with a black woman. He faced a lot of shame and ridicule when people found out that Angie had cheated with Flipper, who was black, and they took that as a sign he wasn't a man. And this song, crazily enough, these 3 words, if you watch the video for this song, it's about a family, a child having cancer, and how it brings the family together and appreciation and love for one another. But this song was being played when Angie's daddy was putting belt to ass because she was dating a black man. And all I remember saying to myself is like, damn, is that serious? It's that deep. And man, was cussing his daughter out something terrible. Jungle Fever is not on streaming services. The soundtrack for Jungle Fever is not on streaming services either. I heard that it's because of the rights for the music, and that sounds like that's about right. But if you're able to catch it somewhere, catch it, because it was a good movie. I mentioned another storyline in this movie was Gator and his family as he battled with drug addiction. This movie came out in 1991, so 88 is like right around the time crack, the epidemic, like exploded. And so by this time, that would have been 3 years into it. This was something I had only seen depiction on the news. And so Spike Lee's portrayal of it put a face to addiction. The way it was being shown on the news, it just didn't put like somebody, you wouldn't imagine how someone's family was affected. It's kind of how we do the opioid crisis now, and how we talk about it affecting none of that was shown. I remember just seeing people just going to jail. So when I was growing up, crack addiction was not really covered in the media as addiction. So like how now we talk about opioid addiction. It was very different in this time period in the 90s. That's not how we talked about it. It was all like people using our criminals. So there was very little discussion on like treating this like addiction. There was very little of that in the media. It was like, just lock all these people up to get them to stop doing drugs, that was all that I was seeing. It's just people being arrested. There was very little push for saying like, let's help get people some help instead of criminalizing them. Somebody drinking too much alcohol, how come we cannot help them in the same way instead of criminalizing them? So I think Jungle Fever put a light onto that, the struggles, and you could tell Lucinda loved her baby Gator to the very end, that she would do anything for him. And unfortunately, the good Reverend Doctor was on the Brother Umar side of things, that he felt his son was going to be so destructive that he just had to put him down. But I think that also goes back to, at that time period, we were not treating this addiction. We were treating this like these were just bad and terrible people that were going out and bringing this onto themselves, or they don't have a problem. So I feel like that played a part in the good Reverend Doctor's desperation to off his son. Now I'm going to just conceal, because the skin tint is not full coverage. I have a little hyperpigmentation I want to conceal, so I'm going to use the Fenty Beauty We're Even Hydrating Concealer just in some of the places that have some discoloration. The song playing now is Change Is Gonna Come by Sam Cooke. And this was not on the official soundtrack, but this song was playing the day before Malcolm died, and that rolling shot. I love when Spike Lee uses that. And I remember hearing this song, and such a troubled little soul at 12, but I remember hearing this song and feeling like somebody had put everything I was feeling into words. Now that I've concealed, I'm going to use the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Tint, and this is in shade 12. And I'm going to use the My Yummy base brush. This is the large angle brush, the number 1. And I just put a little So now this song is Shotgun by Junior Walker and the All-Stars. Now, hindsight 2020, I remember when this song, what part of the movie this song was on. And this is when Malcolm's assassin went up to the Audubon to get a layout of the land. And I really hate that this song is called Shotgun. Was that foreshadowing? I just realized yesterday when I was putting this playlist together, I was like, that's really an odd choice of song during that moment. Blush today, I'm using the Juvia's Place Perky Poppy with blush. And I think I've shown you on videos before. I like to put it on the palette first, spread it around. That way I know how much I'm putting on. So just like this. And so I can get even coverage across this brush because it's highly pigmented. So I do the little L shape. Just a little outline. Now we're gonna jump into my next favorite Spike Lee movie and soundtrack. That is Crooklyn. This is Past the Peas by the JBs. Crooklyn takes place in 1970s Brooklyn, and it centers around a young lady, Miss Troy Carmichael, her brothers, her mother, her father. This movie was semi-autobiographical. The screenplay is written by Spike Lee's sister Joy. She sold it to him. And I remember when the part of the movie when this was playing, that's when the girls were sitting on the porch and the girl that was eating a damn tomato, and the boys start coming down the black, screaming hot peas and butter. And all I can remember is that young man had that cat swinging it by his tail. And I was like, oh my God. So the blush is on, and now time to conceal the Fenty. All right, so this soundtrack also has, now let's just blend all this out. And this is another song from off of the Crooklyn soundtrack. This just is called Crooklyn. It's by the Crooklyn Dodgers, which is a group. This version of the Crooklyn Dodgers is Buckshot, Special Ed, and Master Ace contributed to this soundtrack. But yeah, I thought this was always an interesting choice because there was a lot of old music from the 70s, but I can dig it. I can appreciate it. You know, I wish they would bring back some really good, thoughtful soundtracks. Because it used to be like artists got in the studio just to make the song for the soundtrack. You could tell the soundtracks were so well thought out. I might do a little soundtrack episode. When I was growing up, you would be just as excited for a soundtrack to drop as you would for like any other album. And soundtracks were always a great way to get to know, to introduce new artists. So even if you weren't really well known, a soundtrack is a great no pressure way to see who your audience or who you might appeal to. I'm gonna use the Fenty Beauty matchsticks in the color Espresso. I'm gonna warm it up. Then there we go. Might be better than me putting it all across my forehead real crazy. This makes sense. Points were made. All right, so we got the contour down. Oh, the eye makeup looks so much better once I get all the rest of the shenanigans out of the way. It's time to set this. And it's broken, but I'm gonna use my Pat McGrath Sublime Setting Powder. And I just take a little, I know sometimes I'll use a brush. I know it says under eye on the compact, but I saw Pat McGrath on her site. She even suggested do your entire, set the entire contour with it because this blurs too. So I did that last time and I really liked how my makeup turned out. So we're gonna do it this time too. To brighten my under eye and my face in general, I'm going back. See, this is my new favorite. This is the One Size Setting Powder in Rich Peach. This is El Pito, I Never Go Back to Georgia, which is by Cheo Feliciano and Joe Cuba. And real ones remember the scene that this song was played during. All right, so y'all just saw me shake the One Size powder into here, like so. This is with the large taper brush, but then I just sweep some of the powder. Don't fret about the amount of powder on my face. It's MAC, the Studio Fix, and it's gonna bring it all together. I'm gonna take the Huda Beauty setting powder in Cinnamon Bun and kind of just go over my face and any other areas that I didn't use the One Size. Not much. Everybody is a Star by Sly and the Family Stone. There were some really good old school songs on here. And this song was played, I remember specifically during when the lights went out. And Vic came back and said, I need my lights for my disability. And also too, gave me a look into, I've always been curious about the Vietnam War and what happened to people that came back. What were their lives? What would have happened to be so severe that someone would be disabled to the point that it would require them to have light? And boy, down a rabbit hole did I go. I'm in general a fan of Sly and the Family Stone's music in the first place. I love Sly. I love his voice. I love how eclectic he is. That whole era and genre of music, the Sly and the Family Stone, Bootsy Collins, George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic era is really one of my waves. Alright, so next I'm going to put some color back into my face with some bronzer. So I'm using the Juvia's Place bronzer in dark. And I just kind of go between the two. And my bronzer on my powder products placed. I think everything looks pretty good. I'm going to use the MAC Prep and Prime spray. That's just going to bring the skin back to my skin because right now everything looks powdery. I have lash extensions, so I'm not going to spray my entire face. I spray a beauty blender and then not pat, but just it's like a light touch, but it gets the job done. I'm gonna let this kind of dry. Now I'm gonna use the Danessa Myricks low lighters and the color Off the Grid. This is what it looks like up close. So see, just like that. Thank you to the person who gave me that suggestion to use this brush this way. And this is the My Kitco and Danessa Myricks collaboration brush, and this is the MY20. It's the targeted fluff brush, and I got a comment to start using it for highlighter, and that has been perfect. Alright, so the lip combo today is gonna come straight from the Danessa Myricks Groundworks Blooming Romance palette. We're gonna move on to my second favorite Spike Lee soundtrack, and this is from the movie Clockers. But I did not see it in theaters. I remember watching it at home. It was on tape. The intro to this movie was, how can I describe? It was terrifying but informative. It sparked a curiosity. Just go watch the opening credits to Clockers. I ain't gonna get into all of it. This song is the return of the Crooklyn Dodgers. So I told y'all before, Crooklyn Dodgers had a couple iterations. This is the other iteration, and this is Ja Rule the Damager, OC, and Chubb Rock. Now why would somebody right when I get to filming? So I'm going to line my lips with my personal favorite, Evermore. It's this color right here. So Clockers basically centers around the life of Strike, and he's a drug dealer in New York. Now Clockers was a book before it was turned into a movie. It's a book by Richard Price. When I heard they were coming out with a movie, because I saw the behind the scenes first, and when it was announced that Spike Lee was going to make the movie, which originally this was supposed to be a Martin Scorsese movie, but then he got the offer to do Casino, which was like his fantasy project. So this went to Spike, which thank God. I mean, I think Martin Scorsese would have did this justice too, but you know, I love Casino, so I'm happy he went and did that, and Spike came and gave us Clockers. A win is a win, okay? Once I heard there was a book that went to it, I'm always one that when there's a movie made, I want to see the book too. I want to read the book too, just because you can only cover but so much in a movie. You can't, it's only so much you can cover, and you can't get all the details like how you can in a book. So, and I encourage you, if you love Clockers, go read the book. Poor Strike was under so much duress. There was like a whole nother situation going on too in the book that was like even more stressful than like running from the detective. So if you ever get a chance, go read that. It's Clockers by Richard Price. And the characters were just so well thought out and well acted. You had Delroy Lindo as Rodney Little, and let me tell you, he played that role. That scene with him and striking the car, y'all know what I'm talking about. Earl Barnes is by far like my favorite character in this movie, and this is pretty interesting too. Chubb Rock, I'm gonna go back to talking about his verse on the Crooklyn Dodgers. That line about, you know, they'll have you thinking that black people invented crack, and that goes back to my statement about what I saw on TV in relations to the crack epidemic. It really did, the way it was reported was like it was some stuff we just came up with. I'm going to use, I guess, start off with Desire. Let's see how that go. Maybe let's start down here with Lovesick right here, and then maybe we'll use that in the middle. Oh yeah, this is her. Okay, now I'm going to use like a little pinker color in the middle. So I'm gonna try this here, this color, it's Desire. I'm gonna put that in the middle. We're gonna see what's tea. Last up in my Spike Lee movie soundtrack rotation, this is Misrepresented People by Stevie Wonder. And you see that Stevie is like a frequent collaborator on the Spike Lee soundtracks. Song essentially is a history of African Americans, and this is the intro to the movie Bamboozled. This song ties in with the idea of our misrepresentation and the fact that we have only been seen as a monolithic group in this country. Bamboozled is about Pierre Delacroix, television executive, who comes up with this idea. He's tired of making the type of shows that he's been making, and to get out of his contract, he said he was just gonna make a really super offensive show, so offensive that folks would like get him out of here, cancel him, like we say. So he comes up with an idea for a TV show that is a modern day minstrel show. It was an actual minstrel show. And so like even the way that the show came to be, that it had like a white creator who was like completely on board with these shenanigans. Michael Rappaport is in it, Jada Pinkett is in it, Yassine Bey as Big Black Af. And the side story in this one I liked was the story of Sloan and her brother, Big Black Africa, aka Julius, and how, two people can be raised in the same environment and have two different goals and see themselves and their culture in two different ways. But I think this movie caught a lot of criticism because it was, like I said, actual minstrel show. But the point that Spike Lee was trying to drive home was that these executives, whether this is the case or not, have a lot of us looking really crazy on TV, and if we were not careful, this is before reality TV, I believe, like really took off, that we were going to end up in like a modern day minstrel show. And I will let y'all debate whether or not that has come to pass. This movie also had like a lot of themes about how far will you go for success? How much of your soul will you sell for success? Tommy Davidson and Savion Glover are also in this movie. They are the main characters, Dan Ray and Womack, and they're two gentlemen that Pierre finds on the streets, and then they're unhoused, and he cleans them up and gives them a show. This also speaks to, what else I'm thinking? Even though we didn't have reality TV, this speaks to how reality television sometimes has a tendency, not sometimes, has a tendency to exploit people in bad situations. I think of that Baddies show. They're not the first. A lot of these shows exploit people that are in bad situations for views and all kinds of other stuff. I don't know if the peach even made much of a difference. We might have to go a little brighter. Okay, so this is what I just used. Smitten. See, Smitten I think is gonna do it for me. I'm gonna toss a little shimmer on here. So I'm gonna use the Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb in the color Riri over top of this. I just feel like this pulled a little too dry, so I'm gonna look glossy. I do not like a harsh lime. All right, saints and ain'ts, this is the makeup all done, hair down, and I like it. The eye makeup, it got very scary there at one point, but it looks like it all worked itself out. Join me back here next week where I'll be doing my makeup and sharing with you all my favorite songs here on Music and Makeup. Love you, saints and ain'ts. Bye.